Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Ben here, and welcome to my Game of the Year celebration. Today, we're talking about my favorite games of 2024. And this one is going to be special because this is the 5th year in a row I've done a top 10 games of the year. And I feel pretty good that I've done something for 5 years in a row. This year I turned 40. This is the last couple months of me being in my 30s, which is really fucking weird. I don't think I'll feel any different, but it'll just be weird knowing that I'm not a 30-year-old anymore. And maybe, you know what, for my 5th year anniversary this year, maybe I'll do like what made me a gamer. What made me a gamer as I'm hitting 40 years old? Like, how did I get into gaming? How did I get into YouTube? Maybe I'll go into that. Why I like making videos so much. I think that'd be pretty fun. This year we finally hit 500 subscribers. We're up about 130 since the last video, or the last top 10 video. So it's steadily growing. We were kind of going for 1,000 this year. We didn't quite get there, but I don't know. As long as I'm growing little by little, if I get 1,000 views, I'm happy. As long as I know I put everything into the video, it doesn't really matter. But enough about me. Let's talk about the games. Before I count down my top 10 games, I want to throw out 2 honorable mentions real quick. The first honorable mention goes to one of my favorite stories this year, Still Wakes the Deep. A game that puts you in the shoes of Kaz McCleary, an electrician who has found himself trapped on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. While the game starts off innocent enough, strange things begin to happen. Kaz and his friends find themselves needing to get the hell off this hellhole. It's creepy, atmospheric, and probably has the best voice acting I've heard all year. Especially the main voice actor Kaz, who is voiced by Alec Newman, and Roy, his diabetic friend, voiced by Sean Dooley.
Listen, you got a man upstairs on the case, and I'll see you soon, right?
The game doesn't have any combat, so don't expect to be fighting enemies in this game. It's much more focused on stealth and atmosphere and the story. It's not a super scary game, but it's definitely intense. So if you're looking for a great story and a really unique setting with some of the best voice acting of the year, definitely dive into this one.
Christ, I need to get out of this fucking place.
Astrobot!
Second honorable mention is the newly crowned champion of the Game Awards, Astrobot. Though it's not as high on my list, it's easily the best platformer of the year, and it's probably my favorite 3D platformer since Super Mario Galaxy came out 18 years ago. The controls are tight, the music is great, the space map is fun to look at and navigate. The boss fights in this game are really good as well. They seem to get better as the game went on too. I love seeing all the different robot designs for everything. It was always fun to see how they were gonna turn a well-known character into a robot. And when you start gathering a bunch of them, it's not only funny how they just follow you around as if you're like a superstar, but it's really cool how you can use them to access new areas in the hub. And I will say, even though the game isn't my personal game of the year, I wasn't surprised that it won, because it truly is a special game. It's just not my favorite type of game, but I can recognize greatness when I see it. Now, with all that said and done, without further ado, let's get into my top 10 games of 2024.
You'll need a top-notch team to win this one.
Starting off this year's list at number 10 is the only multiplayer game in my list this year, Marvel Rivals. This game could have went easily higher in the list, but I definitely want to give it some time before I go that crazy. The game didn't even come out until December this past year, and it being a live service game just makes me nervous putting it any higher in the list. But honestly, this might be the funnest multiplayer game I've played since Naraka Blade Point back in 2022. I find myself thinking about it all the time when I'm not playing it, and I can't wait to get on with my friends and family. In Marvel Rivals, you can select from a staggering 33 characters at launch, and they have since added even more in 2025. I love that the game has included a bunch of unknown characters too. Before playing this game, I didn't even know who Squirrel Girl was or Jeff the Shark. It kind of reminded me of the cartoon my kids watch, which is called Shark Dog. I don't know if that's where it came from, but they love that show.
What are you? I'm gonna call you Dog Shark. Shark Dog!
Personally, I can't wait for more X-Men characters to be added. There are rumors that characters like Gambit might be coming. I can't wait for that, man, because it seems like he's always left out, and he's my all-time favorite X-Men character. So if you're looking for a free, amazingly fun multiplayer that will live rent-free in your head whenever you're not playing it, this is the game to play right now. Haunting its way into the countdown, and one of my favorite stories of the year is Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. In this game, you play as Red and Antea, who are two legendary Banishers who are answering a distress call in a town called New Eden. These two are basically the equivalent of a modern-day detective, but in this world, they are investigating curses and hauntings. Seeing that the game is set in the late 1600s, there's a ton of superstitions around witches and a lot of witch hunts going on, and it's your job to find out who's innocent and who's guilty. And out of all the games this year, the beginning hours of Banishers was the most compelling. After the first couple hours, I knew I was going to finish this game. And I would say not since maybe like The Last of Us has the beginning hooked me this hard. I will say throughout my playthrough, up until the 50 to 60% part of the story, I had this game up at my number 2 spot. But after that, the combat really started to grind on me. On one hand, I wanted to explore everything in the world because I was enjoying it so much. But on the other hand, I was exposing myself to the repetitive combat over and over and over. And after the 40-hour mark, I was just wanting it to get to the end, so I could just see the conclusion I was anticipating so much.
What is happening?
So much combat. With that said though, I do think the positives of this game far outweigh the repetitive combat system. And I actually really enjoyed the unique camera angles that they used. I don't know if I've ever seen a game shoot the characters from a side profile view. I love the look of this. And if I had to nominate Banishers for a couple awards, it would be for its map design, which was really fun to gradually uncover, and it was super easy to look at and use. And the other thing I would nominate it for would be its title screen. Astrobot's title screen was pretty damn close, but personally, I like Banishers a little more. Its design with Antea's head being the silhouette in the cave, and the music is just amazing. I found myself sitting in this screen for hours throughout my playthrough. I truly believe if this game could get a sequel and make a similar jump to something like A Plague Tale Requiem did from its first game, we could really be looking at something special. Coming in at number 8 is one of the biggest surprises of the year, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. After being blown away by Amnesia the Bunker last year, I was ready for another stealth-based, avoid a big monster horror game. But with this game being based off a movie franchise and only selling for $30, I honestly wasn't expecting too much. The thing that really stuck with me in this game was its story. They did an amazing job of making everything in this game feel believable, and everything everybody did fit within this silent world. You truly felt alone. I actually found the gameplay to be pretty unique. Since the monster can only hear you, it could be inches away and it wouldn't even know where you're at. But at the same time, you never knew where it was going to walk, so you better hope you're not in its path. The game also provided players with objects to throw around the world to lure the monster away, like bottles and bricks. It's a pretty simple system, but I found it to be pretty effective. You also want to watch your step because certain surfaces will produce more sound than others. You either got to walk really slow or find items like sandbags so you can create silent paths for yourself. But that also creates challenges because you got to be careful picking up heavy objects like sandbags and boxes because that will exert your character's lungs. See, the developer had to be a dick and make the character not only pregnant, but she has asthma too. And for this, you'll need to find pills and inhalers spread around the world. And this will help you prevent your panic attacks so you don't alert the monster. The game also has this really cool feature when you use the PS5 controller where you can turn on the microphone and every sound you make in real life goes through the microphone and the monster can hear it, which was actually pretty fun. Only downside I can think of for this game is that it can be a bit slow at times because you're literally sneaking around 99% of the time. But honestly, overall that didn't bother me too much because the game never loses its tension. If you're looking for an awesome horror game that's not too scary but has some great atmosphere, sneak your way to the store quietly and pick yourself up a copy. Next up is a game that might go down as the most impressive game this year, Conscript. Conscript is a creepy, atmospheric, 15 to 20 hour survival horror game made primarily by one guy. I couldn't believe how much content and how well designed this game was. Just the amount of art that needed to be made for this whole game is kind of mind-blowing, which after a while I started questioning if it was even real because it was so impressive how much was done. The game's got this really unique pixel art style that most of the time will be from an isometric top-down view, and occasionally a big story moment might happen where it'll switch to these amazing looking pixel cutscenes, which are a nice touch. When it comes to story, this game puts you in the shoes of Andre, who's a French soldier looking for his brother during the infamous World War I battle of Fort Verdun, which ended up being one of the longest and bloodiest battles of the war. And you can feel that horrifying setting when playing this game. It's intense and brutal seeming. When you actually run into a German soldier, you get a genuine feeling of dread. The combat and the atmosphere of this game reminded me a lot of Darkwood. It's very dark and moody and definitely will challenge you. It's just a lot more action-packed than something like Darkwood. And I gotta shout out the save room music. It's sad, melancholy, and beautiful all at the same time. It made those long sessions of adjusting your inventory and purchasing items a relaxing escape from the rest of the base. All I'll say is, if you find this game interesting at all, maybe give it a chance, because after 7 years of development, in an Ask Me Anything, the developer revealed that the game had somewhat underwhelming sales, which has to be really disappointing, especially when the game is as good as it is. Some people might say Balatro is the indie game of the year, but personally, I'm going with Conscript. Coming in at number 6 is one of the most unusual games I've played in a while, Slitterhead. This newly released action game comes from the creator of Silent Hill and the Siren series, where the city is being overrun by a terrifying enemy known as the Slitterheads. But the bad thing is, these things can disguise themselves as humans and are lurking throughout the city and constantly preying on normal citizens. I also really like the idea of the Slitterheads eating brains, and not just to eat them because they are hungry, but they are consuming that person's body and memories, which then allows them to disguise themselves as that person. But once these things are exposed and take on their true form, they are nasty looking praying mantis type creatures, and I love their designs. This game actually reminded me a lot of something like Men in Black or the movie The Thing, where you never know which human is actually the alien.
Hey, your skin is hanging off your bones.
Oh, yeah. Is that leather?
but in this game you never know which human is the Slitterhead, and you gotta use your detective work to lure them out. But we aren't playing as a normal hero. The defining feature of this game is that we play as a spirit that needs to possess other human bodies. At first, you can only possess normal citizens, but they are weak and not even close to strong enough to take on a Slitterhead. This is where the rarities come in. These are the humans with the much stronger abilities. I guess you can consider them like the superheroes of this world. And after you recruit each of these 8 rarities, you will gain their powers in the process. But that's not even going to be enough because these rarities can't take on massive Slitterheads on their own. So you want to possess other humans in the area and attack with them as well. This combat system is very fast-paced where you'll be constantly on the move. Even the game's tutorial suggests possessing other bodies around the battlefield aggressively. So don't get attached to one body. This system might sound confusing and might actually look pretty weird in the footage, but it's actually pretty fun once you get the hang of it. I enjoyed Blake, who had the gun abilities, and Anita, who could use her power to call in groups of people to attack the enemy for her. If I had to give this game an award, I already mentioned how weird it was in a good way, but this has got to be the bloodiest game of the year, which makes sense because their powers run on blood. But I thought the blood and the cutscenes and stuff was pretty damn cool looking. And as for the soundtrack, Akira Yamaoka, who also worked on Silent Hill this year, composed the soundtrack and worked on the audio for the game, which I thought was one of the best soundtracks of the year. So if you're looking to play one of the weirdest games in a long time, but with a really unique combat system, definitely check out Slitterhead.
What is your craft?
My craft is death.
What is your pledge?
My pledge is eternal service.
I think it's safe to say that Captain Titus has secured his place as one of the most badass characters in all of gaming. I freaking love this guy, man. His rough voice and his stoic personality get my blood pumping. I love how loyal and grounded he seems. He doesn't care what other people think of him because it doesn't matter. As long as he's doing what's right, he's gonna do it. And I think the developers making him so badass really carries this game to levels it wouldn't be without him. I can't say enough good things about Captain Titus. I also gotta show some love for the world building and the level design in this game. Space Marine 2 made my jaw drop more than any other game this year. It's insane how good it looks with how much is on the screen at one time. They did an amazing job. It's so grand and big and beautiful, while also disgusting because all the enemies are invading the environments. It truly is amazing to look at. And when the enemies start spewing into an area and coming right at you, it's some of the most intense and goosebump-driven moments in the game. It's intimidating in a good way. And most of the time it's just you and 2 other people against a massive horde of enemies. And when you finally survive an encounter, it's got that feeling of, damn, did I just do that? If I had to give this game one criticism, and why it's not at the very top of this list, once you hit about the halfway point of the game, the combat starts to feel a bit repetitive. Luckily, the game is so strong in every other area that it doesn't even matter in the end. It's got an interesting and mysterious plot, multiple badass characters, the best visuals of the year, and an epic, adrenaline-inducing soundtrack. And I personally cannot wait for the future of this series. And it's looking like the developer agrees as well, because according to them, they already have ideas for a DLC and a 3rd game. I cannot wait. Next up, and coming from one of my favorite video game developers, is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. When I think about my all-time favorite games during the Xbox One and PS4 generation, the modern Wolfenstein series is always up near the top, with Wolfenstein: The New Colossus actually being my #1 game back in 2017. I love that series, man, and especially with its humor sprinkled throughout.
You know, my ma always said, never trust a man can't handle his whiskey. So you sit right down, say Terrabelly, and drink up.
Oh, goddamn.
Now listen, Terrabelly.
So when they announced that Machine Games was working on the next Indiana Jones game, with Indiana Jones having that same serious yet funny humor mixed in, I felt like it was a perfect match. The only thing I was worried about was the game was going to be set in first person. But after playing it, I can happily say it fit the game perfectly. In first person, you would explore and do puzzles, and then third person, you would do the climbing and cutscenes and stuff. And speaking of the cutscenes, can we talk about the mind-blowing voice acting by Troy Baker? I mean, my God, it's like Harrison Ford got reincarnated into Troy Baker's body.
You know what? You did. And darn it, you win. I'm gonna give you what you want.
It's pretty damn amazing. Even Harrison Ford was blown away.
I think this guy did a great job. If I'd known he was so good, I would have done it myself.
And I think we gotta give Troy Baker credit. Being the biggest voice actor in the industry, there's a lot of pushback because he's so recognizable. It's like the Tom Holland effect, like he's cast in everything, and now if he's cast in anything else, everyone's like, oh God, Tom Holland again? But after multiple auditions and a couple blind voice tests, they ended up picking his performance every single time.
Todd Howard, our executive producer at Bethesda, was like, no, I'm not putting Troy Baker in my game. I don't want Troy Baker in my game. I auditioned for this thing, man. And I didn't audition once, I auditioned multiple times for multiple people. I had to prove myself over and over again. And ultimately it came down to a blind taste test between me and 2 other people. And Todd Howard said, they picked you every time.
If I were to give one criticism for this game, it would be that the Vatican City section towards the beginning of the game wasn't my favorite. I thought it was pretty damn slow and kind of boring compared to the rest of the game. I was actually wondering if the game was going to be this slow the whole time. But luckily, once you leave the Vatican and start visiting other locations, that's when the game truly becomes one of the best games of the year. And I'll admit, I wasn't the biggest Indiana Jones fan when I grew up. I didn't dislike them, but it was just something I didn't watch when I was younger. Hell, I was only 4 when the 3rd movie came out. But after playing this game, I'm definitely wanting to go back and watch all those again. Because this game's story is really good, and knowing that it falls in between the timeline of the 2nd and 3rd game, it's got me intrigued to piece it all together. So even if you're not the biggest indie fan like me, I think this game is for everybody. So definitely check it out.
Not an ordinary enemy.
Adam, get back!
Coming in at number 3, and one of the most pleasant surprises of the year, Stellar Blade. When I first saw the trailers for this game, I was excited. The game was very stylistic with great animations, and of course Eve was beautiful, so that made it even easier to pay attention. But I was initially worried that the game was leaning a little too heavily into Eve's appearance, and the actual game wouldn't live up to that hype. Thank God it wasn't just Eve that was hot. The whole game turned out hot. Not only was the combat some of the best of the year, but the open world exploration and the story were top notch as well. In this game, you play as Eve, who is part of the 7th Airborne Squad sent down to Earth to take out an enemy known as Natiba. Well, after the mission goes to hell, Eve finds herself alone as the last remaining survivor. But that's not going to stop her. After she's rescued by a man named Adam, they team up and set off to complete her mission. This is one of those stories that definitely requires you to finish the game before you truly understand what's happening. There's some kind of twist, but you don't really understand until the end. But once you do understand the ending, it's pretty damn compelling. When it comes to the gameplay, this is a hack and slash action game with a big focus on parrying. And that's a great thing, because this is one of the best parry-based systems I've played so far. I never felt like it was screwing me over. I thought it was actually pretty forgiving when it came to parrying at the right time. And every time you successfully pull it off, you begin to build up a special meter, which unlocks your special attacks. I know the main focus for this game has always been on Eve's appearance, but I really believe this game would be amazing without her in it. But with that said, maybe it's just because I'm a thirsty bastard, but the search for Eve's outfits became an addiction. They have to be one of, if not the best video game collectible in video game history. I'll openly admit it. I found all those cans just for one outfit. Hell yeah, I reeled in all those fish for one outfit. You bet I started up New Game Plus and made it back to Zion just to retrieve the Christmas outfit. I wanted them all, man. And I really love the Nier Automata DLC that they added, which lets you turn in special cans to unlock Nier outfits, which was a really cool crossover.
ありがとうございました。
And even when it wasn't for a super revealing outfit, I was still compelled to find the next one. I do want to thank the devs for including some less revealing outfits as well, especially the bear outfit, because my daughter always seemed to want to watch this game. So having a not so revealing outfit to put on for Eve when my daughter was watching was a great thing. So if you want to play one of the most stylized action games of the year and enjoy some great music while fighting some monsters, definitely pick this one up. It's pretty stellar.
Oh, kid, through all time.
Hello?
Ever since I started this channel, this is probably the happiest I've been for a game to defy all odds and turn out amazing. Because after years of watching people online hate and doubt Bloober Team, this team managed to knock this game out of the park. And I'm so happy it's good because I've been a huge fan of Bloober Team ever since they made The Medium, which was one of my favorite games of 2021. I even made a full video raving about how good the atmosphere was in The Medium. So I never understood the lack of confidence in Bloober when they were announced to be working on this game. I'm not going to say I knew 100% it was going to be good, but I was very confident Bloober could pull it off, and I was going to at least play it before criticizing it. Just the fact that they were able to take one of the best narratives in gaming and not only stay loyal to it, but they enhanced it in so many ways. The combat also feels like a perfect evolution of the original game's melee system. You're still going to need to learn the enemy attack patterns and pick and choose your moments, because every time you get hit, that's another health item gone. And then at parts of the game, you'll run into creatures that scale the walls and crawl their way up them. They almost never directly attack you. You know in Dead Space when an enemy can come from any direction because if there's a vent behind you, you better watch your back? Well, in this game, that's expanded even more, because these things are crawling up the walls, on the floor, hiding behind doors and behind things. They are constantly scurrying away and relocating to get into a different angle. It's truly one of the scariest and most intimidating enemies I've fought in a horror game. I think the idea of having the double-sided legs always hiding around the levels and not attacking you right away is one of the most ingenious parts of this game. It's not only creepy, but it's kind of funny seeing these things playing hide and seek with you. You're always just trying to avoid getting ganked. I also think this game has some of the best lighting of any game I've ever played. Seriously, I haven't been this impressed with lighting in a game since Dying Light back in 2015, which to me has always been the gold standard when it comes to flashlight mechanics, especially at nighttime. One of the best examples of this was right after you leave the Brookhaven Hospital, and every part of this level is intentionally dark, except for key parts of the level. It's almost like if you were on like a dark stage and then they turn on a spotlight on an actor, but they're doing it for certain areas of this level. It just makes it look so cool and contrasty. And just look at this sign's light cutting through the rain and the darkness. I sat here for a while. It was mesmerizing, man. I also think this area demonstrates the audio design in this game really well. The amount of sounds layered and surrounding the player is so intimidating. You get clanks and clings and pounds and monster sounds and walking sounds. It's amazing. I would definitely give this game best audio of the year, and that's not even close. I really can't say enough positive things about this game, man. I thought the game overall was one of the best looking games of the year, and I can't think of much else that I had issues with. I know there's some pushback from the old die-hard Silent Hill fans, but man, I can't see it. This truly is a special game. Coming in at number 1, and my favorite game of 2024 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. When it came down to deciding my game of the year, there wasn't another game that was able to combine so many elements I loved into a full package like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. From its industry-leading combat, relatable and amazing characters, Mount Rushmore quality music, and a story that captures my imagination unlike any other game this year. Is it a perfect game? No. Did it have a lot of extra fluff and quite a few side missions that were pretty average? Yeah. But when you take away that extra padding, the majority of this game, and especially the main missions, are so good. And I can't find myself judging the side stuff too hard because a lot of it is optional. But for the stuff I loved, and I will say this, and I've been contemplating this over the past 4 years, ever since the first Final Fantasy VII Remake came out in 2020, I think these two games have my all-time favorite combat system of any game ever. It's fast-paced when you want it to be, and it's slow-paced when you want it to be. The combination of real action gameplay with the ability to open up menus and bring the combat to a halt so you can select attack moves and spells and healing items, all in slow motion.
Enjoy the ride. We'll make it quick.
It's the same thing that made Mass Effect's gameplay so compelling. You could go full-on shooter and not even worry about giving your teammates commands, or you could slow down time and take the more tactical approach. And I think these remakes have mastered this fast and slow combat system. And not to mention, Rebirth has expanded the first game's combat even more with its synergy abilities and the team attacks, which are always amazing to pull off. I would definitely give this game Animation of the Year, because every time I pulled off a team attack, I was so excited to just watch the spectacle. And just the fact there are so many characters you can play as and master, and each of them are fun in different ways. The addition of Kate Sith and Yuffie to the group permanently made this game even better. Some games can't even handle animating 1 or 2 NPCs running with you. And this game had every team member realistically following you around. It was so cool seeing them scale up walls together. It's the little details like this that make this game stand out. When it comes to the characters, which, man, I love pretty much every character in this game. I know Aerith is getting most of the recognition, and she got the nod for Character of the Year, but I thought Barrett was the real standout in this game. And after these two remakes, I think this Barrett might be one of my all-time favorite characters now. His brash personality that's straight to the point, but also corny at times, is such a good combination. Not to say I don't love the others. They're all A and S tier characters in their own right, but Barrett is next level for me. And without him, I don't know where the game would be. But with him, it is a masterpiece. And when all is said and done, and the third game comes out, and it manages to be on par with the first two games, I think all of them combined could be one of the truly holy grail experiences in gaming history. It's just sad we're probably gonna have to wait 3 to 4 years to find out. And that, my friends, is why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my favorite game of 2024. I just want to say thank you for everyone that stuck around, and thank you for watching this video so far into 2025. I actually got pretty sick after Christmas for a couple weeks, and then I came down with pneumonia. Feels so much better now, but I didn't get to start this video until like mid-January, so that's why it's coming out so late. So if you did watch this video to the end, and obviously watched it in general, thank you very much for checking it out. Anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay in the light, my friends. Later.
All right, let's get this show on the road, people.